Hey there poetry pals, welcome back to another video. This week I'm going to show you how to write a haiku. Before we go any further, please make sure you're subscribed to my channel and you turn on notifications. It's really helpful for small creators like me to get my videos seen. And do you know what? While we're here, why don't you follow me on social media? I am Josie Alford Poet on all the things. And I put out really awesome content, so follow me on all the things, please. We're also in my kitchen today because my neighbours out the front are mowing their lawn and it's really loud, so I thought I'd film in here, but I realised it's super echoey and the fridge is right next to the camera, so let me know in the comments if the audio is so much worse in the kitchen or do you prefer it upstairs. Let me know. I just fancied a change of scenery. So in this video I'm going to go through what a haiku is, go through a little bit of the history of the form, and then talk about different ways to approach writing it. And in part 2 of this video, which is coming soon, I'll be trying my hand at writing haikus myself. For those of you who are regular viewers, you will remember my 27 things before I turned 27 and how that ended disastrously, and how I was aiming to write 27 poems before my birthday. I ended up writing 6, which means I still have 21 to go. So in part 2 of this video, I will be writing 21 haikus, the subjects of which have been chosen by my Instagram followers. So we'll see how that goes. If you weren't sure about being subscribed before now, make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications so you don't miss part 2, which is coming very soon. We're going to start with, what is a haiku? A haiku is a Japanese verse form consisting of 17 syllables in 3 lines of 5, 7 and 5 syllables respectively. Such a poem expresses a single idea, image or feeling. In fact, it is a kind of miniature snap in words. Think of it like the TikTok or Vine for the oldies among us of poetry. So the haiku first appeared in Japan in the 16th century. Originally it was called a hokku, which means opening verse. So it was normally part of the intro of a much longer sequence or poem. Eventually, the hokku started being used as a standalone form, and in the late 19th century, it got renamed as a haiku. The haiku then made its way into Western culture throughout the 19th and 20th century. Japanese poet and writer Yon Noguchi wrote an essay called A Proposal to American Poets, which was published in 1904, which encouraged American and Western writers to try their hand at haikus. So that's a little bit of history on the form. I feel like it's fairly well known that haikus are 5, 7, 5 syllables, but now we're going to look at one of the most famous Japanese haikus and go into further examples of things that define the form. Old pond, a frog leaps in, water's sound.
Hey there poetry pals, Editing Josie here. So one of the really cool things about this haiku that I totally forgot to mention when I was filming this yesterday was that because it is a translation, there are lots of different translations. I just picked this one as an example, but I've put a link in the description below where you can read 32 different translations of this haiku, and the decisions that are made by the translators to how they translate the haiku can really change the mood of it. So if you're interested in the art of translation, and I think translating poetry is a form of poetry in itself, definitely go spend some time reading those translations because they're really great. Okay, bye.
So the first thing we're going to talk about in relation to this is syllables. Obviously, as a translation, this doesn't have the correct number of syllables, as in 17. That is not how language works, unfortunately. But also, Japanese haikus are made up of sound units called on, not syllables, and they actually measure sound in a slightly different way. Although the word on is sometimes translated as syllable, one on is counted for a short syllable, two for an elongated vowel or doubled consonant, and one for an N at the end of a syllable. So, for example, the word haibun, though counted as two syllables in English, is counted in 4 on in Japanese. So the H-A, I, B-U and M. The word on itself, which English speakers would view as a single syllable, comprises of 2 on, the short vowel O, and the N, which is pronounced more nasally in Japanese. So that is one of the reasons why you might find that Japanese haikus do not have 17 syllables. However, in modern Western haikus, we just stick to the 17 syllable thing. As you can see from this example, it has an ellipsis. Now this is here to highlight a feature known as kireji, which means cutting word. The feature typically comes at the end of one of the poem's 3 phases or lines. A kireji fills the same role as a caesura or volta in Western poetry. If you've watched my videos on poems, a volta is the turn of a poem where it starts looking at it from a different angle or cuts the poem in some way. This is what the kireji word, the role fills, is a turn in the poem. It may briefly cut the stream of thought, suggesting a parallel between the preceding and following phrases, or it may provide a dignified ending, concluding the verse with a heightened sense of closure. When you only have 3 lines, including a turn or a kireji or a volta, it's quite challenging. There are Western haikus that do attempt this, and I encourage you to give it a try as well. Another feature of the traditional Japanese haiku is the kigo. A kigo is a word or phrase that symbolises a certain season. These are often in the Japanese language. Words can mean and denote several different things, so it is a lot easier to include a kigo in Japanese haikus. But there are still ways that you can work it in. So looking at this example, the kigo here is frog, which in Japanese symbolises springtime. So when you're writing your one, have a think about how you can use, at the very least, an English version of a kigo in your poem. So if you want it to be spring, I guess the idea is that if you want to show it's spring, don't say springtime. Think about something that you can use to show that it is springtime instead. Getting to the classic show don't tell vibe. So, haikus are generally about nature, but increasingly in more modern Western haikus, they do not have to be. It is far more important to focus on that crystallization of an image, an idea, or a moment. Think of it again as the TikTok of poetry. Before you get started on writing any form, one of the best ways you can learn is to read examples. So we were just looking at a traditional Japanese haiku, and there are plenty online if you have a Google. I've been heavily relying on the Wikipedia page, on which there are many examples, so I thoroughly recommend that. But in terms of more modern haikus, we are incredibly lucky. Lucky for us, the amazing Torc has been working on a project called Haiflus, which documents the 12 weeks of lockdown, using poetry, photography, music and film to document the historical moment that we are living through and the social history of the COVID-19 pandemic. Featuring words and images from 225 people with 600 contributions and 8,000 submissions overall from all over the UK and all around the world, and told through weekly film instalments. all set to 5 specially composed pieces by Richard Monks. This project is not just lockdown art, it is a snapshot of history. And in that way, I feel a haiku is perfectly suited to what Liv's doing. I've included a link to the full film with all 12 weeks in the description down below. It's truly incredible, and it gives you such a huge variety of haikus to go and watch and listen to. And also watching the form interact with other art pieces such as photos and music. So definitely go and check that out. It's become a massive resource. And also, like, 1, you get to learn about haiku, which is really, really useful. And 2, it makes you feel so much less alone in this horrible time. So the link is in the description below. I definitely recommend watching it. If not all of it, then definitely a couple of weeks worth to help get your grounding when it comes to approaching haiku. So, how do I write them? In a lot of my other how to write a poem videos, I give a lot of advice on how to go through, especially like, restrictive structures. But the fact is, this poem is 3 lines long, so you've just kind of got to go for it. The only restriction here is the 3 lines and the syllables. So just do your best. I think the only way to get through it is to practice lots and really play around with those line breaks. And also, I think it's worth having a think about what features you're going to include. Are you going to talk about nature? Are you going to try and include some traditional Japanese features such as the kigo and the koreji? But I think the most important thing to bear in mind is that snapshot, that moment of emotion or something like that. Really try and capture it in as little words as possible. People think that writing haikus is really easy, but I also think it is, and to an extent it is, but I think it is much harder to write a good haiku that truly captures a moment. So really challenge yourself to take a huge emotion or idea and condense it into 17 syllables. So with that in mind, I want to share a haiku with you that was written by John Cooper Clarke. It is called Haiku Number 1. To convey one's mood in 17 syllables is very difficult. So there you have it. It is very difficult. Go ahead and share your examples of your haikus in the comments. Let's share them around. I think it would be really fun. If you want to see how I get on with writing 21 haikus based on topics that were chosen by my Instagram followers, make sure you're subscribed and stick the bell on. That video is coming very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching this week's video. I hope you found it useful. I actually have a playlist of all my how to write a poem videos, and you can find it in the description below. Maybe I'll put it here. Maybe it will pop up as an end card at the end of the video. So you can go and watch all of those and try and write lots of different poetry forms. Why not just binge watch them? Do me a favour. And also, why not tell your mum and dad to subscribe to me as well? That would be lush. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all soon. Bye.